When you think of catching a ride in Dubai, the first name that comes to mind is Careem. Founded by Mudassir Sheikha and Magnus Olsson, what started in 2012 as a website for corporate car bookings has grown into a transport juggernaut with operations in 70 cities across 10 countries in the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia. In 2019, Careem was acquired by Uber for an eye-watering $3.1 billion, solidifying the success of the company, but also enabling some ambitious expansion plans. Today, Careem does much more than just transport. It also offers bicycle rental, food delivery, groceries, and digital wallets, all powered by the Careem Everything app, technology that seeks to make every aspect of our lives as easy as tapping to book on one of their iconic captains. Hello and welcome to Homegrown DXB, the show taking you inside the lives of the people changing yours right here in Dubai. I'm your host, Amar Bati. And we're here today with Mudassir Sheikha, the co-founder and CEO of Careem. Mudassir, thank you so much for being with us on the show.
No, thanks for having me over.
Now, I understand that you arrived today in a Careem. Is that a common occurrence for you?
Yes, of course, Careem. I use Careem at least twice a day to get around, and then for other services as well, like ordering food and groceries.
Is it a quality assurance thing that you just want to check to make sure everything's running, as it should?
For sure, there's definitely some element of quality. I use the service, I use the app, so as things come up, I report them to the team. But at this point, it's just a habit, right? And I find it so much more efficient to rely on Careem to take me around versus having to drive and get lost and worry about parking. So I'm just hooked on it,
I suppose that's a nice perk of having a ride-hailing business
I
that you
guess.
run, right? And you also strike me as somebody who's someone who's very passionate, very committed,
Mm.
potentially enjoys, his job. Would you say that that's accurate? And do you feel the same passion that you felt maybe day one as you do now, 13 years later?
The passion is the same. The focus of that passion is different. So initially we were very much a bit deeper in the trenches, trying to just serve every single customer in the best possible way and survive and build the business. I think at this point the passion is to really build something truly transformational from the region.
And do you feel the same sort of passion that you had 13 years ago today? Like, do you still get excited about getting up and going into the office?
Yes, absolutely.
I guess that's a good place to be, right?
Alhamdulillah.
And speaking of those early days, I believe you grew up in Pakistan, and you struck me as a very well driven individual, someone who the pursuit of excellence is really important too. And I imagine a lot of that comes from your family. In fact, I think you've remarked previous that your mother was one of the people who really instilled in you that drive, but that it sometimes meant that your childhood wasn't as fun as it could have been. How do you reflect on that now?
Look, I think it was maybe difficult in two ways. One was the ambition, meaning that nothing was good enough, right? If you came second in class, the question was, why did you not come first? And the second was what led to some discipline, right? Like you had to do things that had to be done versus what you felt like doing. So that's maybe some combination of those two things that made things a bit challenging. But frankly, in hindsight, I'm super grateful for that upbringing because without a doubt, I would not be where I am today without that kind of upbringing. So super grateful for what's happened. Yes, it wasn't as much fun, but who says fun is the one thing that someone should aspire for in life. Um, and having said that, I do believe now that where we are as a region, we need to build big things. Building big things takes a lot of hard work, takes a lot of discipline, takes a lot of perseverance. And for at least a couple of generations, we'll probably have to sacrifice some of that fun to build these big things so that the people that come after us can actually maybe spend a bit more time having fun.
Well, hopefully. I mean, Careem certainly makes people's lives easier, right? That's one of the stated goals of the company, and that you've said yourself. I guess, but looking then at that next generation,
Mm.
looking maybe at your own family, do you seek to emulate your upbringing to a certain extent? Do you also instill, maybe not that you have to be first, but that you really need to have that drive?
I'm trying, but I don't think I'm trying it successfully.
Why
um,
not?
it's one look. I think the kids these days are growing up in a very dynamic environment than we grew up in. They're just exposed to a lot of things from the outside world through social media, through things like YouTube. So they're not getting all of their guidance from you. They're getting actually more learnings and exposure from the outside. And then, of course, in the process of building Careem, I don't have a lot of time to spend with them. So, frankly, at this point, they're probably getting more input from outside than from me. But I'm trying my best, and as much as I can, I try to spend time with them and make sure that there's some codification of family values and then some propagation of those values that hopefully instills some level of ambition, some drive, some humility, some curiosity in them that can hopefully make them future leaders and future builders, because I think it's going to take a couple of generations. So their generation probably has to slog a bit as well before things can get a lot better for the region overall.
Of course. I mean, do you have any hope that they might also, I guess, come work at Careem someday, or do you want them to go off and do their own thing?
Look, Careem is not a family type of business, right? It was a venture funded startup. We sold it in 2019, at which point I didn't own any of Careem. Technically, now we have bought some of Careem back, but it is still a business that will have the best leaders that are trained to run Careem, right? Not necessarily the ones that come from my family. So unless there's a massive coincidence and they become amazing at some of the things that Careem needs them to lead, most likely they'll have their own careers and professional pursuits, and Careem will find someone that is best placed to run Careem.
Well, speaking of careers, professional pursuits, I guess, first steps. You were involved in a tech startup, and forgive my pronunciation, Bryant's or
Yeah, brilliance. That's
Bryant's.
right.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Which did not succeed.
hmm
But you've also credited that as a very important, informative learning experience.
hmm
Can you tell us a little bit about that, but also about how you see your life going if it had perhaps succeeded?
Yeah. So brilliance actually stood for broadband science. This is in 2000 in San Francisco. It was the startup that raised the most money in the dot com bubble in Series A funding. So this was like a big thing even back then in the Silicon Valley. And quite frankly, the ambition of the startup was to build something quickly and then flip it. Let's build it in 9 months. We do an amazing IPO. Everyone becomes rich. Everyone goes home. And that's the end of the story. Now, a few things that I learned from it, to your question on formative, I think one, I learned how to move super, super fast. I learned how crazy ambitious one can be. But then I also learned that you should always build to last. You should never build to flip, because you never know what's going to happen with things around you, right? You cannot time things perfectly. So it was really, really incredible to be in that organization at that time and to learn a lot of things to do and frankly many things not to do. Now, to your other question on what would have happened had Brian succeeded, and that was very early in my professional life, right? I was 21, 22 when I had joined Brian's. So, an early success would have probably professionally risked some focus. I've probably made money early. I don't know what I would have been doing, right? I've probably been investing in a few startups here and there, probably gotten lost a little bit professionally, most likely. Even on the personal side, I would have probably attracted different kind of friends, a different life partner, maybe. Who knows what they would have been attracted by, me or something else. So, as they say, blessing in disguise, most likely. And that spectacular disaster was probably something that was meant to teach me a lot of lessons and put me on a track that I feel worked out much better.
I mean, you alluded to this just now, but is that why it was so important to you when you co-founded Careem, that it was not something that you were looking to flip or to just that you wanted to be long lasting? You have your core values, you want it to be impactful. Was it because of the specific experience? Is that, or was that one of the drivers?
It was definitely there a little bit from my side, but frankly, a lot of it came from Magnus, my co-founder and partner in crime at Careem. As I think, as you probably know, he had a bleeding in his brain in 2011 that almost took his life. And as part of that whole process of being told that he doesn't have many days to live, and him reflecting on life and asking himself what would he have done differently. He made a commitment to himself that if he survives, he will call himself Magnus 2.0 and build something big, and more importantly, build something meaningful. And that's, I'd met him before when we were working together, but that whole desire to build something big and meaningful reignited in me some of the things that I had grown up with, right, and some of the experiences that I had before Careem. And sort of the convergence of that was, let's build something that will simplify and improve the lives of people in our region, and build an awesome organization that inspires. So the objective was to really simplify the lives of people so that lives in the region are simpler. The vast potential that we have in the region, the human potential that we have in the region, can waste a little bit less on the daily friction of life, but can really pursue big things and build an awesome organization that inspires. Meaning, let's build some confidence and self belief in the region. This is 2012, right? Things were not as bullish as they are in the region at the moment. This was a time when every top graduate from the region that was graduating wanted to go and work at multinationals, not start businesses or do their own thing. So we felt some self belief and confidence was required to sort of get these amazing people to do big things or to aspire to do big things. So that's how we started. We said, this is the mission of Careem. We'll build something big, we'll build something meaningful. And then the question was, what do we do? Which had its own sort of journey. And we started with things like education and healthcare, which are things that are meaningful, right? You can do meaningful things in education and healthcare that can also be very big, because these are two big sectors.
So what
But
was the first question then when you both decided, okay, we're going to, so you were at McKinsey at the time, right?
yes, yes.
You said, I want to do something meaningful, impactful, but you hadn't, of course, landed on at the time, ride hailing.
Hmm.
Um, and you mentioned those lists, but what was the core question you were asking yourself that then led you to look at all these
Yeah,
different
yeah.
options?
So the two words that Magnus had were big. It has to be big. It has to be meaningful. Those are two big things. And as you can imagine, two consultants trying to make something of these two words, what's the first thing you do? You build a 2 by 2 matrix. Okay, what are the things that can be big on one dimension and meaningful on the other dimension? And when we plotted different sectors that we could work in, education and healthcare were two sectors that were both big, and they could also be very meaningful. So that was our first instinct. Let's find problems in education and healthcare that we can pursue, and those can be both meaningful and those can be big. But for some reason, nothing really clicked, right? We looked at many ideas, but one by one, we basically, ruled them out. And one day, you know, when we were decided that, look, we'll do something together. I went to the head of McKinsey in the Middle East at that time and said, look, you know, I'm leaving, and by the way, Magnus is leaving as well, and we don't have the exact idea, but these are some of the things that we're thinking. And the one or two remaining ideas that we had on the list in education and healthcare, he shot them down as well. He's like, they don't make any sense.
Why did he shoot them down?
Because he's like, I just don't see them becoming something big. So it's just difficult. And I'm doing certain things that tell me that this is not going to work. So he had his reasons to not believe in them. He said, have you looked at transportation? And I'm like, what do you mean transportation? He's like, man, it's a big problem in this region. You guys are consultants, you go around, and as you know, the services are not very reliable. So I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And we understand this problem really, really well, because we have been consumers of the services that have not worked well. So I got super excited. And I went to Magnus and said, Magnus, brilliant idea. We can do transportation. And this is what we would do in transportation. And he looks at me very strangely and says, this is I don't know, exact words that he used, but he's like, this doesn't make any sense. I get a second chance in life, and you're telling me that we should start a transportation company to move consultants around. That doesn't make any sense. That's not meaningful at all. And it really wasn't until he had an encounter with a captain, a driver that we call captains now, in Abu Dhabi. And he got to spend a couple of hours with that captain, really understanding in the life of the captain. He was from Bangladesh, and he would work 15, 16-hour days, make some money. 90% of the money that he would make, he would send back home to educate his kids and look after his family. And then the remaining 10%, he was living in a pretty abysmal condition, right? He would not even have his own bed, right? He was sharing the bed in different shifts with other captains. And this was Ramadan, when you actually don't get a lot of work. Work is down. So he was struggling to even make enough money to pay for his car payments. And that story really touched something in Magnus and said, when he came back and said, look, this idea about transportation, if we can make something that can make the lives of these captains much, much better, I can see the meaningful bit in it. So let's get started.
So who came up with the captains? Because it's quite a sort of iconic term you associate with Careem now, right? And
Yeah.
it does feel like you're appreciating them a little bit more
Mm.
than if you call them a driver. I don't know, just linguistics of it, I suppose.
Yeah, so the first time the word captain, in fact, the first version of it was a pilot.
Okay.
was was actually coined by one of our operations managers in Saudi, and this was around the time that we were starting trying to change mindsets of captains. That you're not just a driver, you are someone that carries a lot of responsibility. You're someone that is important, and your responsibility is to look after the lives of people that are sitting in your car. You have to make sure that they get to their places on time, they get to their places in a safe way, and you're actually doing something really important, because without you providing your services, these people will not be as productive, as efficient, and hence the society would not be as well off. So that's where the idea came up, that let's come up with something that can give them the respect and give them the responsibility that comes with this job. And there was something else that was playing in the background. um, you know we dependent on these captains for the business that we were building. And many times, many, like, most of the customers were amazing, right? Very respectful, and they would give them the respect they deserved. But once in a while there would be an incident, right, where they would get treated like drivers, and it really
Mm.
bugged us, right? Like, why do they not get more respect? So when we first heard this thing used in one of our Saudi offices, we were like, there's something here, and let's make them captains. And then there was a phase in which we would not use the word captains, right? We would still be using the word drivers. And we had one executive back then who said, every time I hear the word driver used in Careem, you'll have to put X amount of dirhams in a jar. And that jar
Like
will
a swear
become.
jar, basically, but for driver. Yeah.
So, and then somehow that became the word. And now, Alhamdulillah, and we are so proud to see this. This word is not just used within Careem, but we have seen ministries and government offices use the word captains instead of drivers, which is so amazing to see.
And speaking of names, where did the name Kareem come from, and who came up with it?
Yeah. So it was Magnus who came up with it, and his Arabic is better than mine. Mine is shwe shwe, and he actually learned Arabic. Uh, so we're starting a car business. So generally the tendency was, let's come up with a name that has car in it. And somehow he came up with the idea of Kareem and said, look, it has a car in it. It has a very, very good meaning in Arabic, which is generous. And third, Careem.com is available. So there are a lot of signs
Very
that
important.
this should be the name that we go after.
Fair enough. I mean, it works as
Alhamdulillah,
he
yeah.
said. Alhamdulillah. Um, so you've talked a bit about sort of Magnus's motivation, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, going through any life-threatening illness makes you reevaluate life. What made you decide that this was also the time for you to go off on your own with him? Was there also like a formative moment for you? Was there something that was, I don't know, brewing in the back of your mind?
So to some extent, you know, I wanted to build and do something entrepreneurial, and I joined consulting with the intent that I'll do this for 2 years and then I'll do something entrepreneurial. So this would be my MBA of sorts, while getting paid. And of course, I overstayed, and 2 years became 4 years. But towards the end of my time in consulting, we were opening an office in Pakistan. Consulting firm was opening an office in Pakistan, and I was a small junior member of the team that was responsible for making a list of clients that we can serve in Pakistan. And as you can imagine, these consulting firms serve big clients. So the easiest way to get the list of the biggest companies in the country is to go to the stock exchange website, get a download of all the companies, sort them in descending order, and at the top you have the biggest companies that you could potentially serve. And this is 2011. Guess how many companies in Pakistan were worth more than $1 billion?
I guess very few.
Yeah, right. So at that time there was, I think, three in total, and out of the three, one was the national oil company, the other was the national gas company, and there was like something else. But there was only one company outside of that hydrocarbon related activity uh, that was worth $1 billion, and it was just worth $1 billion. And frankly, who cares about the $1 billion marker? It could be half a billion, it could be 5 billion. But the fact of the matter was that in a country of 220 million people, the fifth largest country in the world, there was only one company that had crossed that meaningful milestone. And I was a bit shocked, right? Like I was living in Silicon Valley before that. I'm like, man, every 100 meters, there are companies that are worth tens of billions of dollars, now trillions of dollars. And a bit embarrassed as well that how can we not have produced larger companies and more of them? And I often joke around with Magnus, he's from Sweden. And like, man, what do you guys eat for breakfast? So for 9 million people, you guys have produced, Ericsson, Volvo, and IKEA, Spotify, Klarna, and the list goes on, right? So, when Magnus came and said, let's build something big and meaningful, I'm like, yeah, man, we can do it. So let's just make a run for it and build something really, really meaningful, really, really big that can hopefully show to us and the rest of the people in the region that these things can be done from here.
So fixating on that core mission, the
Mm,
meaningful, improving people's lives, making a company that's impactful, right?
mm.
Um, how do you think that Kareem has sort of lived up to those early aspirations 13 years on now?
We're just getting started. And it's painful because we worked really hard in these 13 years, but there's a lot to be done. Now, if you just break the purpose of Kareem down, which is simplify and improve the lives of people, and then to build an awesome organization that inspires. Let's start with the first part. There's at least 500 million people that live in our region. And the way that we define the region is from Morocco to Pakistan. That's the region of Kareem. And any given month, we're simplifying the lives of 1% of the people that live in the region. These are the number of people that are using Kareem services. That's 1% after 13 years. So there's a lot more lives that we need to simplify and hopefully simplify them in many more ways than just mobility. Like in Dubai, for example, you can use Careem for many things now. But if you go to Morocco, if you go to Egypt, if you go to many other parts of the region where Careem operates, Careem is still largely a mobility service. So on the first part, we're still very, very early. On the second part of Careem's purpose, which is to build an awesome organization that inspires, ironically a little bit more happened than we would have expected. Because, and I use the word ironically because if you'd asked me 13 years ago which part of Kareem's purpose would make more progress in 13 years, I would have probably said this: simplifying the lives of people, because this is something that you can do with your hands, right? You can launch services in more places, you can get more people to use your services. This is something that you have some more direct control over. But how do you build an awesome organization that inspires, right? That requires some supernatural events to happen. But fortunately, two things happened. One is Careem became the region's first unicorn. We didn't even know what it meant when we started the business. The whole unicorn thing was very foreign. But this was a time when the world was celebrating unicorns. So we became the unicorn, the first region's first unicorn. And that created some excitement in the region, right? That, wow, it's possible now to build these kind of things in this part of the world as well. But even then, there were a lot of skeptics, right? Man, like this company that started 4 years ago, still not making any money. Like, are they really worth $1 billion? Like, there's a lot of question marks that people had. But the final validation happened when Uber acquired Careem for $3 billion. And, it was now someone is willing to pay $3 billion for this asset. And that was an incredible validation, both for top talent that you need for building these things, because all of a sudden, top talent, instead of working at multinationals, now all of a sudden we're thinking, why am I not working at startups? Why am I not doing startups, right? And that becomes a virtuous cycle, right? Because as amazing people want to build these things happen. Second, it was also a validation for the investor community in the region. And the region has is a net exporter of capital to the rest of the world, but somehow that capital was just getting exported. Not enough was being invested in this ecosystem. All of a sudden, that changed in many capitals in the region, so that was amazing. And then, lastly, some validation to the policy stakeholders as well, where they realized that promoting this venture ecosystem can be a way to diversify and can also be a way to create, valuable opportunities for youth that was largely under and unemployed in many parts of the region. So alhamdulillah, I think that was that the second part of Kareem's purpose came out much further ahead. But I would argue, Umar, that we're still very early, right? I mean, the region now thinks it can build unicorns, but does the region think it can build decacorns? Probably, because not that far. If you
I
can
mean,
build a
is
$3
that one
billion
of your
business,
aspirations?
not the valuation itself, but the proxy of impact, right? But even decacorn is too small an aspiration. Does the region think it can build $100 billion platforms? I don't know. Probably not. Does the region think it can build $1 trillion platforms? Absolutely not, right? I mean, this is something that is just too far, and people will say the TAM doesn't exist to build that kind of a platform. So, we have given ourselves a challenge that the region needs big institutions, big companies that can drive impact in the region in the way that impact has to be driven, and nothing is impossible. So if someone is going to make a run for it, we might as well make a run for it.
I guess looking at that aspiration,
Mm.
where you're potentially looking at being a company in the same breath as something like an Amazon or a Google or a Meta. I mean, way down the track,
Mm.
right?
Inshallah.
I'm not trying to rush you, uh, but I mean I think that is something that maybe is there as an aspiration, right?
Of course.
Um, what do you think is missing right now to bridge that gap? Or gap is maybe again too small a word, but
Mm.
to get us on that path where not only is it possible, like you said,
Mm.
nothing's impossible, but that we also have the belief that it's possible, and that's what will drive people to go after that, right?
Absolutely. I think the first, as you said, is the belief that it is possible. Um, I think if you don't believe in it, then we're not going to aim, we're not going to try in earnest to make it happen. So I think that's just the first thing. And it looks far out, but I think let's just believe that we can build these things. That's number one. Second, there's a lot of capability that is required to build these things. And, historically, we've had talent in the region, but a lot of the talent hasn't been through those experiences that give them the ability to build these large companies. But alhamdulillah, I think that there's a lot of momentum. The region is, mashallah, very attractive for top talent that is coming in from all parts of the world. So I feel that that problem is on the way to getting solved, right? Get the right talent and make sure that they're able to sort of join these companies and make them happen. And I think the rest is just time. I think these things don't happen overnight. They take multiple decades. And I think we have to just persevere and make sure that we don't give up and stay at them.
Well, I mean, you certainly seem like someone who's no plans on slowing down anytime soon or exiting anytime soon. Um, I'm just curious, though, as another hypothetical,
Hmm.
if you were to exit,
Hmm.
what would you be doing, or what would you want to do now that's not Kareem? Do you have any other dreams or aspirations in that regard?
Look, education is something that we need to solve at scale in the region. I think a lot of things are not where they ought to be because of deficiencies in education across the stack.
Are we talking about access, quality, everything, all of the above?
Yeah, I think access, quality at all levels, right? I think you can start with K through 12, college, and even higher. Um, so if I wasn't doing Careem, I'd probably be doing something in education, and we should try to do something that can scale and can show faster results than is possible with, let's say, today's methods that are currently employed in education, because that's the root cause that we have to solve and fix.
And do you have any other? I mean, you were talking earlier about how your previous boss at McKinsey said, "Oh no, education too complicated and
Mm.
medicine too complicated." Now with 13 years wisdom under your belt, do you feel like you have a solution to that
No, I
issue?
don't have a solution. Like he didn't say that those things are difficult and stuff, but the specific ideas that we had
Mm.
taken to him were probably not the best ones. Um, but look, I'm very busy with Kareem at the moment, right? This is a 200% job that takes everything out of you. So I don't have ideas at the moment, but I think as and when it makes sense, one can take a step back and start thinking about things that can help. In the meantime, like many of us, I've invested in some startups. Some of them are in education, doing things in the region, and inshallah, they will have some breakthroughs and big things will happen from those platforms.
Inshallah. Um, you mentioned the 200% job.
Mm,
Again, you strike me as someone who is very driven, very committed.
mm.
Do you think it's possible to succeed in this type of field, and whether it's being an entrepreneur, whether it's sort of driving your own business without that level of commitment? Do you think it's sort of an essential quality?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any other way to do this thing. Entrepreneurship gets romanticized, right, in popular media many times, but it's hard. It's hard work, and it's
Does it ever get easier? Do you feel
yeah,
like 13
the
years is
days you feel you're doing well, but there are more days where you're just tackling challenges, and at some point you get used to them, right? So they don't phase you, but I don't think it becomes easier.
Can you tell me about, I guess, a time or a day when you thought it might all fall apart? I'm sure there's quite a few early on.
Yeah, there were many days early on, but I think the most recent one was probably when COVID happened, right? We are a ride hailing business. People are staying at home. People are not moving around. Then the entire thing comes crumbling down, right? We were looking at our dashboards, and all of a sudden, from like hundreds of thousands of transactions a day, almost a million transactions a day, all of a sudden there is nothing. And it was one thing for us to look at those dashboards and see those numbers, which was, painful. But the other thing was to speak to captains and find out that they don't have any work and they still have to make these payments on their cars. Their families still need to earn a living. That was really, really painful. And this was right after we had done the deal with Uber, right? Like the deal happened in 2019, the
Right.
deal closed. So we had negotiated the right with Uber to remain independent as Careem, as a brand, and pursue the everything app vision, the super app vision. And at that time, there was a fear that while Uber gave us this independence, but the world has changed, right? They might say it doesn't make any sense to keep an independent Careem running within Uber. So there was a big, big risk that this whole thing would just get wiped out entirely. But first, thanks a lot to a lot of support from Uber, from Dara, the CEO himself. He kept his promise to keep Careem independent, even though one could have argued he could have done things differently based on the new conditions. And then, thanks to some incredible efforts by the team to pivot the business overnight from a mobility ride-hailing business to becoming an everything app centered around deliveries, which was the need of the day. And today, Alhamdulillah, we have a very large food delivery business, a very large grocery delivery business, and those are the fastest growing things within Careem, thanks to that pivot that happened, or pivot that was forced on us as a result of a very, very painful COVID calamity.
But you were already conceptualizing the super app prior to COVID, if is that correct?
It was something that was on paper.
Mm.
It was something that we thought we could do. It was something that we wanted to do, but it was not something that was prioritized at all. Right, the ride hailing business was doing well, and that was all the focus. But then we didn't have a choice. We had to just move on to it and move on to it with full force. And Omar, in many of these, when you become larger, the weight of the core business sometimes doesn't give enough resources to new things to succeed. right? You allocate, hey, I'm going to allocate 20% of my resources to becoming the super app or becoming the food delivery business or grocery delivery business. And sometimes that's not enough, right? So many of these new initiatives in larger organizations fail because they just don't get enough focus. But in this case, what happened was there was no core business left. So 100% of the resources and focus were moved to the new things, which ended up seeing them succeed. So I think the Everything app is a gift of COVID. We may not have succeeded in becoming the Everything app had COVID not happened.
Talking about the super app, because
Mm,
now if you think of Careem, obviously you still think of ride hailing, but the super app is very much front and center, both in terms of your future plans and what people know the company
mm,
for now. And it's also when you're talking about creating that awesome organization that to inspire,
mm,
what has helped you support, prop up, other startups.
mm.
How do you select which startups to partner with? What are you looking for in particular? And are you ever concerned that they may compete with you in the future if they do too well?
No, definitely not concerned about the competition bit. But I think the thing that you're referring to is, so the super app is a platform, right? There's
Right.
some services that we run on the platform, like the mobility service, the ride hailing, the food delivery service, the grocery delivery service, even the payment services are run by Careem. And then we open up the platform for others to build on top of, right? So,
Correct.
for example, home services is powered by a company called Just Life. Car rentals on the platform is powered by a company called Swap, and there's more examples. So the way that we think of which startups to work with, first, it'd be difficult to have startups that are competing with us. So we try to define what we'll do, and then what are we willing to partner on. And what we're willing to partner on has to be things that are adjacent to us in some shape or form. So car rentals, somewhat adjacent to ride hailing. Home services, somewhat adjacent to groceries and food delivery that we're doing. If you do something that is completely out of the, is completely out of the ballpark, then, maybe we can deliver that service on the app, but the customers will not necessarily think of Careem when they think of needing that service. So we try to think of, hey, what's adjacent right now? Let's partner with someone to provide that adjacency. And then once we do that adjacency, the next adjacency opens up. So that's the sort of concentric circles that we can think of to expand into new services. Now, to your question on do we compete? No, we don't compete. In fact, if any of these companies become larger than Careem someday, frankly, it's aligned with Careem's purpose to build an awesome organization that inspires. We consider that to be our success.
When you're looking, I guess you're looking also for partners similar to you who are very committed, right? Who
Hmm.
to put in the 200%. Of course, the challenge with any person who works at that level, certainly whether over 1 year or 13
Hmm.
years, is they might burn out at some point.
Hmm.
I'm just curious, how do you approach that aspect of your professional life? What do you do to unwind? Do you do much to unwind? Um, what's your approach to that?
So, of course, Careem is a responsibility, but I have other responsibilities at home as well. So kids are young. I have four girls under the age of 12. So I need to make sure that they're
Because
getting enough time with me and they're getting hopefully some learnings from me.
I'm
So I
sure it's
think
a
that
very busy household
it's a very
to
busy
come home
household.
to. Yeah,
Yeah, a
yeah.
lot of chaos, a lot of sleepless nights. Maybe not now. I think we're past that stage. And then parents are of course getting old, so want to spend as much time with them as possible as well. So those are the things that I do outside of Kareem, and they keep me fairly busy.
If you were to retire at some point, what would
Mm,
you want to do? I feel like this is, again, maybe a silly question to ask you at this point when you're looking at like 10, 20, 30, 40
mm.
years, in pursuit of your mission. But if you did have, sort of that dream retirement, what would that be?
Well, for the first year or so, I'll probably just catch up on sleep. Let's
Sh-
start there. Um, Reconnect with a lot of the people that I just haven't had the time to stay in touch with, family, friends, and so forth. And then, like I said, I should do something in education, whether directly or indirectly. So just try to figure out how can we, at scale, uplift education in the region.
Well, we'll look forward to that in 30 years or so, I
Let's see.
guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
exactly.
see.
Um, Kareem obviously has grown an incredible amount in the 13 years and with aspirations to grow much bigger. I think, though, with some organizations, especially when they get to the second, third decade, and they
Mm,
grow. The global whatever earth shakers, sort of that
mm,
you're talking about. Um, often come in with this strong core message, and then as they grow, it becomes harder and harder to maintain that core ethos when
mm,
you have a international team all over the world, right?
mhm,
Um, how do you approach that as Careem continues to grow? How do you try to keep, focused on that core message? That thing that obviously touched you and
mhm.
and Magnus so many years ago.
So of course, there's some things, systematic things that we are doing. So, for example, there's very, very clearly articulated purpose of Careem that everyone understands and everyone has internalized, I hope, at Careem. And then we have values that are well defined, that are integrated in our hiring processes, in our performance management processes, and so forth. So, those are two core pillars that have been well codified and that are part of our systems and processes. Now, these things also need to evolve, maybe not the purpose part, but the values need to evolve over time. And every few years, we take them up and say, okay, what values do we need going forward so that we can refine them and make sure that they remain current. And I do my part to make sure that these things are top of mind. Right? For example, every time we have people starting, like the onboarding, so I do the values and purpose introduction in onboarding. We have a values deck. We make sure that they read that deck every week for the first 3 months of them being at Careem. We have a values fest every year where we remind people of those values. So, Alhamdulillah, I think we have a system that just ensures that people understand the purpose, understand the values, and can live them like conduct themselves in line with those values. Now, how does that evolve over time, right? I think to the I think larger question that you're asking. And look, companies need to change, right? So I think it's okay for uh, people to come after me and after them and keep evolving these things to make sure that it is current with the times. I think the one thing that should not change is the purpose or the mission. I think as long as that remains constant, frankly, everything else should change to the times and the needs of those times.
Okay. I wanted to turn our attention to more recent news.
Hmm.
Um, and talk to you about Careem ending their ride-hailing service in Pakistan. Obviously, I'm sure disappointing for
Hmm.
you, both from a business perspective, perhaps also on a personal level. I want to ask you a little bit about sort of your feelings on that,
Hmm.
why the decision was taken, and sort of where you see Careem going forward. Because I believe Careem Technologies is still active, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, so basically, what happened was we built the ride-hailing business in Pakistan for I think probably were there for 8 years, and it became a large business over time. And then more recently, we had to suspend the service, and it was painful for two reasons. One was a lot of effort went into building that business. It wasn't easy. So just to see that business being suspended because of macroeconomic situation and competitive headwinds was very, very painful. And secondly, all of us want to help our countries in some shape or form, right? So in some ways, when Kareem was in Pakistan, my day job had a lot more meaning, right? Like there was some feeling that whatever I'm doing here is helping my country directly. So just is helpful, as a motivation to keep going. So it was painful from that perspective. But as you mentioned, the Careem technology is the one that we are leading now, which has deliveries and payments and everything else, still has a large back office in Pakistan. So a lot of our software development happens there. A lot of our customer service happens there, and a few other functions have large presence in Pakistan. So we're still there. We're still building from there, and we're still supporting the country in some shape or form. And and the hope and the goal is to go back into Pakistan at the right time. We have these services. Alhamdulillah, they're doing well in some countries. At the right time, when the opportunity arises, we go back in and we build the Careem everything app in Pakistan, not just the mobility service. So inshallah, we go back in a stronger way.
Inshallah. So then, more broadly, I guess, looking at Careem today and
Hmm.
where you hope it'll be as it enters its second decade, third decade, what are your hopes and dreams, your goals, your targets for Careem as sort of you go forward?
Yeah, so we should build the most impactful and the most valuable company in the region over the next decade or two. Um,
And how will that manifest, do you think?
from an impact standpoint, like I said, there are 500, and by then there'll be like even more, 600 million people, let's say, in the region. And Kareem should be a part of people's daily lives, right? People should be relying on Kareem every day in multiple ways. And as a result of Kareem being available to them, their lives are just simpler. Their lives are better. Their quality of life is significantly higher as a result of Kareem. So, and that should be true for all people across the region. So that's one aspect of it. Um, the other aspect of this is we also feel that Kareem has an indirect role to play. Building an awesome organization that inspires, we do believe that the impact of Kareem will not just happen through the work that we're doing at Kareem, but through the capabilities that are being built in the region by the people that were building Kareem. There's this Kareem mafia out there that is building startups across the region, as you know. Uh, and we hope that that capability building, that breaking the barriers and showing to others that can be done, that these days we are very focused on how can we help the region catch up and race ahead through AI, because there's a big disruption that's happened, and every time these disruptions happen, there's an opportunity to catch up and race ahead and leapfrog. And we're asking ourselves, what can we do to help Kareem as well as the region take advantage of it, ride this wave in the best way possible? So hopefully we'll do some things along those dimensions as well, but it should translate into directly or indirectly being there for everyone every single day and making sure that they have a better life as a result of Kareem.
Well, Mudassir, thank you so much for being with us on Homegrown and for obviously your commitment to Careem, to hopefully giving everyone a better life. I think that's a truly worthy goal that you set for yourself. Not an easy one, but one that I'm certainly excited to see how it plays out. So thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
much, Umar. Appreciate the support.
Pleasure having you.
Thank you. Take care.